show you just briefly the resources that I've gone ahead and added for you all yesterday. This was just the rest of the resources. So I can get here either through the My Milam, and that's going to be in the 2020-2021 folder, or I believe most of you are in the little pre-K through second, but it's going to link all to the same place. Let me open this up a little bit more, and then I put it right on top so we can find it right away. So first grade only. Right now, you all are the only ones doing it. Kinder will get their turn at the end of the year. And all right, first thing I have is the participant notebook. So if you need to go back to it, can't find where you saved it or whatever, here it is. Remember, you don't need to print out all of it. There just might be a few pages you want to refer to. I've gone ahead and I've put the PowerPoints from the last couple of days. So if you need to go back, my notes are also in there. I've been doing that so that way when I do the kinder training, I remember, okay, that's what we talked about. So my notes are also in there, so you can go back to those. I went ahead and I put the video from yesterday, because yesterday I started showing you all some of how to code the errors and things like that on the test. So I'll go ahead and I'll put the video from today as well, because we're going to go a little bit more into that. This is the link for the PD site. If you need to go back to it, I've gone ahead and put it, and the link to the student assessment site. Now, also, just a little side note, I received mine today, but you should be receiving yours either today or soon, your access to mClass. So keep an eye out in your email for that access now to mClass, so you can access your accounts. Just the little task cards and the components. This one is a cheat sheet that one of the alls put together, and this one is really nice. This one you may want to go ahead and download and save on your computer. Let me see if I can open it. Yesterday was a little slow opening documents. Come on. This one is nice because she goes through each and every assessment. She kind of gives you a brief explanation of it, and then she goes through a definition of each one of the codings, all right, or each one of the errors. And she does that for each and every test. So this is called cheat sheet, okay? And it's a really nice document. You may want to go ahead, download that one. You might even want to print it out. I think it's about 5 pages or so. The Getting Started Guide for Assessors. This just once again goes through the materials that you need. You're going to need to have 2 devices. It just kind of goes to that checklist of what do I need to get started with testing. I need to notify parents and all those things. Unapproved accommodations. I thought this was interesting when I came upon it online, so I went ahead and put a link to it. According to mClass, okay, it's really important that we stick to what mClass has and the errors that it has, okay? So we're not going to be looking at extra time, and, you know, we're not going to be like, let's say for instance, I'm thinking first grade, I have a student with a stutter, okay? If the student goes ahead and repeats, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark that as an error, okay? If the student misses a sound in a word because they have a speech problem, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, I'm going to use my best judgment as a teacher and figure out, okay, should I mark that wrong or should I keep it? But you know your students, okay? But remember too, if you're very worried about that student, go ahead and mark it as an error because we need to look closer at that student. So basically, this is just saying, you know, that we are going to stick to what mClass has as far as the timers and the errors and things like that. Now, if anything else comes down from district, I'll let you know about that. I know usually we kind of look at the accommodations and go from there. The parent letters are also here. They're available in English and Spanish. And then it also has videos for your parents that you may want to go ahead and send them the link or download it. It's really nice. It basically is the letter for the parent, but in a video format. All right, we have getting started with remote assessment. I don't know why I randomly have it there, but once again, it just goes through the materials you need. Your testing documents. I told you we might be receiving kits. I heard something about that, but if not, you have your testing documents right here. So right on top are the student documents. This is the one that you will display for the student. So whether we receive kits or not, you all will be ready to go. These are also the ones that, you know, if you have those students live and in front of you, you're going to want to print them out. There they are. Okay, so you would display this page, of course, zoom down so you can see the entire screen for the student. Let's say if we were doing the letter naming fluency, the nonsense words are also here. There's the practice words. There are the actual words. You go on, it has the word reading, and it has the passage. So all the materials you need for MOI are there. You also have it in Spanish in case we need it later, Nicole. It's also on here. And then this one that says Dibble's scoring guide. This is for those of you that did like TPRI back in the day. We used to have a sheet where we would mark if the answer was correct or incorrect. And that's kind of what this is, okay? It's just a document. But good thing, looks like we're going to be online for next week, so we shouldn't have to use any of this. So it's just basically.
Are we going to take a whole day to test our class, or?
As far as I know, right now, you are not being given an asynchronous day. So, you know, that's just something that I guess we'll have to bring up and discuss with admin. But as far as Dr. Brown, I have not heard that. So you will need to probably assess during your small group time is what I recommend, during your enrichment time, you know, during your science and social studies, dare I say, you know, use whatever time you have. Keep faithful. Don't forget about keeping your reading and your math in there. But if you need to use that small group time from reading and math, you know, go ahead and do so. Most of this test honestly should not take that long because remember, all the components are timed to 1 minute. All right, so really it's a quick assessment. The only part that's going to take a little longer, possibly, is going to be the OL, the oral language. And that's going to be where I say a sentence, the student echoes the sentence. And that's because it's not timed to 1 minute. I have to go through all 21 sentences. Okay, now I can't repeat the sentence unless I'm like interrupted by some, you know, act of God. But, you know, so that's the only one I anticipate going a little long. But the rest of them are timed to just 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then, of course, you know, we'll be kind of looking to you all to see how it goes so that you kind of are guinea pigs. So that way, you know, I can direct Kinder a little bit better at EOY to see how this assessment goes. All right, so next I have, it's called a guided practice script. Okay, this is what I use when I created my videos for you all, where I'm demonstrating each assessment, where I'm acting as the student and I'm acting as the teacher. So I went ahead and I hung my script for you all. So that way, in case you want to use it for practice, or if you want to follow along while you're watching the video, you can, and you can see the errors that I'm making, and then you can see on the screen how I'm coding that error. Now I do go back in each assessment and I talk about the errors and the codings as well. And I'll go to those videos right now. So I have, I've only done the videos in English, but the assessments are the same in English and in Spanish. So these that say demonstration video, first grade. These are the ones that I'm telling you that I went through and I demoed the entire assessment for you all. So this one is the phonemic awareness. Demonstrates phonemic segmentation And I'm just going to kind of skip through, okay? So I'm going through the reminders, showing you all that. Going to the student directions. I also show you if you need to display something to the students. I talk about that and I show that as well. And then when we get to the assessment, all right, so I'm going through, I'm the teacher and the students. Sorry, I can't change my voice too much. And I'm coding all this for y'all. And then afterwards, I go through and I talk about the codings.
Hold and drag to the A. And that would also go ahead and mark that the student said the entire word. On, I can see the student said the two separate sounds.
Okay, so
It said the student
these
went
are available
said
for you. I went through each component, including the LO or the OL. For some reason, I want to always switch those two letters. Which that one is a little long because I did go through all 21 sentences, making errors on some here and there so I could demo to you those errors. Okay. So I tried to, go through that checklist. Those PowerPoint slides that I was telling you are like a little checklist ones on, do I know how to do this? Do I know how to mark this type of error? Do I know how to self-correct? I kind of went through each one of those in my little, and it's called like demonstration video. Okay, and it'll link over to my YouTube. Down here below, it talks about the spelling, which I want to make sure that we do take time today to talk about the spelling because there is a part that you all need to do prior to the students logging on to the spelling. And then also I've included, like I told you before, I've included all the videos that were in the PD, and I've included the remote videos that we looked at yesterday during our PD. So if you don't want to go back to the PD site, you're like, oh no, that one's too tedious, which, that's up to you. I thought it was kind of nice, but it's up to you. We all work differently. You can come here and I have them organized. Like here's all the PSF ones. Here's all the NWF. So they're all organized by their category. Okay. And if you want to, like I said, you can use that scoring, that guided practice document to follow along with whatever I'm doing. That's up to you. Some of us work better by looking. Some of us like to see it. So I went ahead and put it. This is the video again on how to assess remotely. It's basically everything we've already talked about, and it's got a few other little tips, but it's mostly what we've already talked about, and the remote testing directions. So I've tried to put everything you may need in this folder. Okay, so that way when you're going over it this weekend, of course you can still text me. You can text me at 3 a.m. I may not answer back till about 7 or 8. Okay, and depending on how Stella is, it might be 9 or 10. But go ahead and text me, even if it's late at night. You're like, oh, I don't want to forget about this. That's fine. Go ahead and text me your questions, email me. I'll be checking. But I try to, like I said, I tried to think ahead to what you all might need. Okay. So with that said, oops, day 4. I'm going to the wrong place. We are going to go back to that practice site. Okay, so I can show you a little bit more. I would like to spend some time on that. And then towards the end, I want to make sure I cut out some time so I can go over the spelling. Okay, but I want you all to see a little bit more of the error coding on that practice site. Now, remember when you're on the practice site, basically all first grade, all of us alls are using this site. So if you see that there's a test that has scores or whatever, remember you can always click into it and click invalidate, okay? And that will clear those scores and you can go ahead and you can practice your test. When you are leaving the program, they do ask that you invalidate as well. Don't sync, don't keep it in there, invalidate it, clean it up for the next person. All right, because we all are kind of going into the same practice site there. And let's see, that's where we're going to go right now. So let me get to my chat, and I'm going to put that site back in the chat for you all in case you would like to follow along or whatever. You know, some of us learn in different ways. Some of us like to be kind of following along stroke by stroke, and some of us work by watching. So it's up to you. And then my next chat is going to be the username and password again. And then the practice students that I most often use. I have one for English and one for Spanish that I most often use those students. Most of the other students, you can go in and test on them too. It's just, I usually find these two are kind of ready to go. I don't know, just my preference. So let me go back to my screen. Remember too, if it's not quite working for you for some reason on Chrome, go ahead and use Safari. Okay, for some reason, mine always wants to look like it's loading for an hour when I go to this practice site, but when I go to Safari, it usually pops right up. I don't know. Oop, is it gonna work today for me on Safari? Okay, there it goes. Now, if you need to, you can always go ahead and filter the students. That's what I usually do. I click on name, and that way I can see all the first grade students right here. I usually go in with Belin because she usually is ready to go for MLY. Now I see that somebody's been in here doing some testing, and that's okay. Like I said, we're all kind of using the same practice site. It's not going to override while you're in. Okay, it'll sync when you log out. All right, if that makes sense. So while you're working in here, you're not going to see somebody else making changes. Once you're in, you're usually good to go. But since I want to take a look at this test, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click invalidate and then invalidate and exit. And now it's clean for me to go ahead and take a closer look at this test. Now, yesterday we took a look at the NWF, and we were going to go ahead and take a look at the word reading. Remember how students score in the NWF, which calculates both letter sounds and decoding. That's going to determine whether or not letter name fluency and phonemic awareness open up. All right, now if you have a higher student that does fine in the decoding and you're like, you know what, during Saxon phonics, I noticed they're not quite hearing all the sounds, or, you know, maybe you have a concern about that student. You can go and test these, but they would be optional for that student if these still, and they'll say on them optional, okay? But if it's a low student and it shows as blue, you need to test it. So let's go ahead, and you know what, since letter name fluency is opened up, let me go ahead and start there. Now remember, you always have the reminders. Go through those as often as you need to, because that's what's going to ensure fidelity amongst all of us. That's why I've made sure you have all these materials that you can go back to. So hopefully we are all testing the same way. Hopefully that doesn't mean we all have the same misconceptions, but hopefully we're all testing the same way. So this one also has a 1-minute timer. That's why I'm saying I think these tests might go pretty quick, because even if you have a slow student, that 1-minute timer is going to kick you out. Now, if 3 seconds go by, you can tell the student, you can give them the letter name and tell them to keep going. All right, that's if the student hesitates for 3 seconds. And you can do this one as often as possible. Now, this one, we can only remind them once if the student tells us the sound instead of the letter name. All right, this one they do recommend that I only remind them once to tell me the letter name. And discontinue assessment if the student does not name any correct letters in the first line. So now let's go to the student instructions. Remember, at this point, you would go ahead and you would display those letters for the student. And in the video that I show you, I don't do a split screen like mClass. I'm not that fancy, I'm sorry, but I do show you and remind you to show those materials. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to read the script. Here are some letters. Tell me the names of as many letters as you can. When I say begin, start here and go across the page. Point to each letter and tell me the name of that letter. If you come to a letter you don't know, I'll tell it to you. Put your finger on the first letter. And then, whoops, I don't even know how I do that. Then we would go ahead and go to the assessment. When you're ready to start the assessment, you would say, ready, begin, and then the student would start. Now notice it does have the clock at the top that is counting the minutes away or the seconds away. You also have these dots. These are what you can use to try and determine if those 3 seconds have gone by, in which you can prompt the student with the letter and tell them to go on to the next one. Now with this one, it's pretty direct. You know, either they get it right or they get it wrong. So if a student gets it wrong, we're going to click it one time. Let's say the student said E, or I'm sorry, let's say the student said G, but then went back and said, oh no, that's E. Then I would mark it a second time for a self-correct. If a student during their tracking misses an entire line, these kids sometimes do that, then I'm going to mark the entire line using this X on the side. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. It's either right or wrong, and then did they miss the entire line, which some first grade students might. And I'm anticipating some might with the remote testing. Yes, Keishla. Oh, unmute.
Sorry.
That's
So
okay.
when we taking this test, because I did a test like this very similar back in Tennessee, so I'm very familiar. But we weren't allowed to like point to each letter. We're not allowed to do that, right?
Well, the student is to point to each letter.
Yeah, right. The student is, but not
Yeah, the student is to do the tracking. You only do an initial one of like, start here.
Right,
That's about
right.
it. But the student does their own tracking.
And if they miss an entire row, don't we automatically just end it?
That's if they miss in the first row.
Only the first row. Okay, just
Yes.
double checking on that. Okay.
Okay, if they're reading along, they're doing okay, then it keeps them going. But if they miss the entire first row, then yes, it will go ahead. And from what I understand, the little pop-up screen will come up.
Gotcha. Okay. So it
Right.
doesn't matter for any of the, like if they miss the second row and they begin on the third, we just let them continue with the third row?
Yes, you just go on with whatever row they kind of got their finger back to.
Gotcha.
All right. And yeah, I have a feeling some of our remote testers, that might be a problem. Okay. They're young and it's hard enough for first graders to track. Then remember, you're going to have this message. Was this measure administered remotely? And you know, whether it was or not, you go ahead and you say, if the student was in a different location, of course, that's going to be remote. If the student's there, then they're going to be with you. Now, one more thing to end this test. I need to mark where the last letter the student said. And I'm just going to assume it was the letter U here. Okay. So let's say the student got the letter U wrong, and that was their last letter. So I'm going to mark it wrong. Okay. If they got it right, then leave it clear. But then to mark that it was their last letter, I'm going to tap and hold. And now it brings up this bracket here. And that shows that that was the last letter the student read. Now, remember, I live in a 2-year-old world right now, so my brain is just everywhere. You might want to have like a piece of scratch paper handy, because I found that sometimes when it popped up with the screen on, am I testing remotely? By then I forgot what letter the student last said. All right, that might be my 2-year-old brain here, but sometimes a little scattered. So you may want to have some paper handy just to kind of mark, okay, so that way when you go back to this screen, After you do the remote screen, you know which letter they left off on. That's just a little something that I found. All right. So, and like I said, I know this is kind of quick. I'm trying to touch on some of those points there. But if you need to remember, I did it all in the video as well. Okay. And I actually went through the minute as the student and was coding as the teacher. All right. So next, let's look at the phonemic awareness. Invalidate and exit. Now, in the phonemic awareness, the student is to tell you the sounds they hear in the word. So in nonsense word fluency, they were reading the word or they could sound it out. In this one, you're going to tell them the word, so there's nothing to show on the screen, and they need to count the number of sounds that are in the word. They don't necessarily need to tell you, oh, there's 3 sounds, but I know we do that during Saxon phonics. So you may want to bring the kids back to that. Remember how we count the sounds in the words when we're working in Saxon phonics, and remind them of that before you get to this test. Once again, it's a 1-minute timer. If the student hesitates for 3 seconds, you just go on to the next word. Tell them the next word. And discontinue the assessment if the student does not get any words correct within the first 5 words. So then we would go to the student directions. I'm going to say a word. After I say it, you tell me the sounds you hear in the word. So if I say the word miss, you would say s. And it's okay if the student counts with their fingers and you count with your fingers like you do during Saxon. Okay, I would take the kids back to the routines that they remember. If I say the word low, I would say o. Let's try one. Tell me the sounds you hear in am, and the student would tell you the sounds. You'd mark if it was right or wrong, okay? Now let's go ahead and go to the test. Okay, here is your first word, B. Once again, we have the timer on the top and we have the 3 dots, okay, to help us mark if the 3-second hesitation has gone by. Now in this one, we're marking each individual sound. So if the student goes B, E, like they should, then I would mark B, E, all right? If the student were to say, like if I say the word B, they just echo the word back to me, B, then I would draw a line across to show that they said it all together. Or I could mark whole word. Now let's say that the student says B-A. Well, the student said 2 sounds, but the student said this last sound incorrect. It's very similar to the nonsense word fluency, but just remember with this one, they're telling you how many sounds are in the word. Then was it assessed remotely? You would go ahead and click whether or not it was. The only tricky one that I found, like kind of with my 2-year-old brain maybe, was this, okay? I need to remember the student did tell me 2 sounds, so I need to mark 2 sounds, but one of those sounds was wrong, okay? And then marking that incorrect sound. And then we can go done. How do you all feel? Y'all look like a combination of like tired and overwhelmed. Yeah, I know it's tough on a Friday. It is. Okay, and I'm going kind of fast, but like I said, I have those videos where I go a little bit slower talking about the errors and the coding. So you can go back and watch those. You can go back and watch the ones from the PD. All right, hopefully you've got enough resources there to help you feel comfortable in practicing on your own. The word reading fluency. This one is going to be sight words. Some of them are going to be decodable words. Some of them are not, okay? Like the word said is not necessarily a decodable word. We have our reminders. Once again, it's 1 minute. If the student hesitates for 3 seconds, I can tell the student that last word and tell them keep going. Okay, just kind of move them along. But I'm going to score that word as incorrect. I can do this as often as possible. And then once again, discontinue assessment if the student does not get any words correct in the first 5 words. So at this point, I would display the student materials, which is the list of words for them to read. And I would read from the script. Please read from this list of words. Start here and go across the page. So yes, once again, I can kind of tell them where to start or direct them with my cursor or with my pointer finger. But after that, it's up to the kid to track. When I say begin, point to each word and read it the best you can. If you get stuck, I will tell you the word so you can keep reading. Put your finger on the first word. And then we would go ahead and it goes ready, begin. The student's first word is the word on. Was it correct or was it incorrect? And this one, once again, you have the timer. You can check for the hesitations with the 3 dots. But this one is just, is it incorrect? Did they self-correct? Or was it correct? Okay, it's just either right or wrong, okay, or a self-correct. But it's pretty straightforward, kind of like the letter one. All right, no kind of tricky coding here. So then we have the oral reading fluency, the reading fluency. This is going to be the passage for the student to read. Once again, we're using the benchmark form. Once again, it's timed for 1 minute. We can give the correct word to the student. If they hesitate for 3 seconds, just move them along. Just kind of keep, how they get stuck on a word. Score that missed word as incorrect. I can do that as many times as I need to. And discontinue the assessment if the student does not get any words correct in the first line of the passage. So now let's go. You okay, Nicole? You have a question? No? Okay.
Kind of like,
No, I agree with you all. This is a lot. And even Ms. Frankel yesterday, when she was looking at it, she's like, oh my, this is a lot for the teachers. A lot of it we've done. Like we've done these things. We've done well, I don't know how much fluency we've been doing. Hopefully we've been doing some fluency with the kids. I know it's hard remotely. Okay. But I know the letters, the sounds, the nonsense word decoding, things like that. We've done that with the kids. The only thing that I find kind of pressuring is the fact we have a timer and I need to code the students. So I need to be really familiar with those codes.
yeah, that I agree. That's the part that I don't know if I'm going to mess it up for them.
Yeah.
I'm watching it, and when I tried it, I think I time out just because of that thinking back to, oh, okay, they said this, but they said this wrong. It's just different.
Yes, no, I agree. That's the part that I find very pressuring. So that's why I've tried to give you as many resources as I can so you feel comfortable. And yes, practice. It's going to take a lot of practice. And you may even want to pick one of your slower students to be your first kid. All right, somebody that's going to give you a little bit of a grace time, just one of those slower kids, just to kind of, so that way you feel comfortable and that kid's not going to get through that much in 1 minute. I hate to say it that way, but that way, you feel a little bit more comfortable in that real world scenario.
And my understanding is this is going to be done sometime this month, right? We're kind of like iffy on that because Ms. Johnson sent something out, and when you look at it, not a lot of us have students coming back to the classroom. It had like a Word document on there, her Excel spreadsheet. And so it doesn't seem like we're going to have more than 4 or 5 kids in the classroom. Like right now, I don't have any in my classroom coming back. So I'm going to be doing all of this remotely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then some of your colleagues may be doing a combination of both. You may be doing a combination of remote, and you may have the student right there with you. So that's why, you may want to go ahead and print out the student documents.
Yeah.
You may want to, even if you're testing remotely, you may want to print out the student documents anyways, if you find that you need to make notes on it or something. But if you have the student right there, what I suggest is maybe putting that document in a sheet protector. So that way, if you need to, you can go ahead and wipe off that document that student just was tracking on. Okay, so you can use it for the next student.
Okay.
All right, but yeah, this is going to be tricky. And yes, I've been reading the emails about next week, and honestly, like I'm still going, should I color my hair? Because remember back in October, I colored my hair and then they said stay home. So, it's kind of just a waiting game right now.
Well,
And then it looks like some of you might have like just 5 to maybe 6 or 7 kids. It's going to be very small, the amount of kids coming back.
So what they're asking is for all of us to report to campus, and then we're still going to continue to teach virtually?
That's my understanding, that unless you have, and I'm sure she's going to go over this on Monday, but that's my understanding. Unless you have like an ADA, you have a 504 basically on yourself, then yes, you will be reporting to campus, all of us, and you'll be testing your students in your classroom, but they'll be at home.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, it's going to be a wacky week. But I don't want you all to think, oh, because it's going to be a weird week, I don't want to start testing. No, I want you all to go ahead and start, as soon as possible, because stuff always happens towards the end. Okay. So please start. So this weekend, you really need to kind of take a look at it and practice it. All right. So let's go on. At this point, I would go ahead and display the text for the student to go ahead and read. Remember, we're doing the passage now, the text fluency. So I'm going to tell the student, please read this out loud. I love the ones that read it silently. If you get stuck, I will tell you the words so you can keep reading. When I say stop, I may ask you to tell me about what you're reading. So do your best reading. Now, remember, this is not a comprehension test, so there will not be questions, but that way the student will take it seriously. Start here, and you're going to point to the first word. And then it's going to begin the timer as soon as the student says the first word, if the first word was correct or incorrect. Now, this is where it turns into a running record, okay, like DRA. All right, because I can go ahead and I can score this as incorrect or as a self-correct. All right. I can also go ahead. I thought this one I could insert a word. I'm not seeing it on my screen today. Maybe it's not this test. See, I'm still learning too. Okay, maybe it's not this test. Maybe it's the OL. I thought on this one I could insert a word. Okay, why is it not showing me insert? I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Maybe this one doesn't have the insert. It's just whether it was correct or incorrect. If they skip a row while they're reading, then once again, you have that option to select the row. Pay attention to what the student is reading, because once the minute is up, it's going to take me to that other screen, and then I need to come back here and mark where the student left off. So was this administered remotely? And then I need to go back, and let's say it was this word. I need to tap and hold and place that bracket. So you may want to have a scratch sheet of paper or something just to jot down that last word so you don't forget. Keisha?
Is there a discontinue rule? You probably went over this, but like say they don't read the first 2 sentences. Do we continue testing even though it's a minute long? So
on this one, I believe it will kick you out if they miss the first 5 words.
Okay.
All right. So on this one, yes, that's what I remember from the directions.
Okay.
Now, the last one, the OL, this is the one where I can do it like a running record, where I can insert words, substitution, omitted words. I have all those options, but this is not timed. The OL, oral language, under listening comprehension, this is the only part that's not timed. But it might take me a little longer because I do have to go through all 21 sentences. So with this one, if the student hesitates for 5 seconds, then you'll go ahead and go on to the next. Do not repeat the sentence to the student. The student says, what did you say? Oh, I forgot it. No, don't give it to them. Not unless, you know, like they say, only if you're interrupted. And that would be like, you know, an act of God, or if we have an intercom, or, you know, something happens to interrupt you in the middle of saying the sentence. Read each sentence clearly, naturally, and consistently. Give credit for pronunciation variations due to dialect or articulation. And tap correct to score as correct if the student repeats it verbatim. Oops, so let's go to the student instructions. On this one, there are no materials to display. The student is just listening. I'm going to read some sentences. I want you to repeat them back to me. Make sure you say exactly what I say. Here is my first sentence. And this is where I told you all I might say, echo the sentence, Mary is playing with her friends. If that's the instructions I've used with the students in the past, I'm going to use that this time too. Okay, I'm going to recall them back to what we've been learning in the classroom. Maybe I say Mary is playing with her friends. You say, waiting for the student response, okay? Whatever you have going on with the students that they know they need to repeat or echo. And then we would mark this one correct or incorrect. It's when I go to the actual sentences here that I have 50 million options, okay? So, my mother's hat is brown. Let's say that the student says, my mommy, so they substitute. So I'm going to click it wrong, click substitute, type in mommy, save. My mommy has a brown hat. So my mommy, they inserted the word has. So I'm going to go over up here to insert. Gives me all these little plus signs. I'm going to click on the plus sign in between mom and hat. And I'm going to type my mommy has, save. And then here I would go ahead and I would do it as a substitution. Has, substitute, a, type in the word a, is going to be another substitute. So I'm going to tap substitute, hat, or my mommy has a brown. And then I would do substitute again for brown and I would type in hat. This is a lot. I see Nicole already like mouthing stuff at me. This one is intimidating. Okay. Yes, this one does seem a little intimidating. Now, the good thing is it's not timed. So I can tell the student, you know what, hold on a second. And then I can do my coding on the screen, go on to the next sentence. Now it does also have for omit. So let's say the student leaves out my and just says, mommy has a brown hat. So then I would click my and click it as an omit. Now, if the student repeats something, let's say they decide to go back and repeat it, then I would click and I would go repeat. Okay, so it does have a lot of options on here. Once again, if you click it basically 2 times, it goes to the self-correct, okay, just like the others. This one is intimidating, but like I said, it's untimed. So I can tell the kid, hold on a second. Okay, this is where you might want to have one of those slower, more patient students with you while you're doing it the first few times. Okay, the intimidating thing about this one is just all the options on top. They're options we've used before when we're doing fluency probes, but it's just this new method of coding, this company's method. Okay, so that is the assessment in a very quick, extremely quick nutshell. But like I said, I took you through all of this in the videos. I went through the entire minute as a student or with the OL. I read every 21 sentence I said and I echoed, and my mistakes are in there. So you can see the mistakes that I made and how I coded. And then I went back and I talked about those errors and the coding. All right, so those resources are there. I understand it's a lot. I feel it too, okay, when they showed it to us. I do like this assessment because of what we're going to get from the students, the information, but it's going to take us a few kids to get into routine with it. All right, just like anything new. So now I'm going to, I know that was like super quick, but we're running almost out of time. And I want to make sure that I touch on the spelling with you all.
Hold on.
Okay?
I have a quick question. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And forgive me if I wasn't listening. So when we first see the screen, if you'll go back to where you're at and it says middle of the year.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we start at the top one? Which one do we start with?
You are going to start with, and in fact, you have, I went over this yesterday and
Right.
you have this document. Woo, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move my little Zoom bar. It won't move. You have this document in here as well under mClass components. And it's also on the cheat sheet too. The cheat sheet takes you through the order.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's all I needed to know. Just
Yes.
as long as it's on the cheat sheet, I can look it up. Okay.
It's on
Thank
the
you.
cheat sheet and it's also on this one. It's called mClass components. You're going to start with the nonsense word fluency. This is where you begin. If needed, and remember, it'll tell you you're going to do the other two. If it's not needed, you're going to go to the word reading, the oral fluency, the OL, and then the student does the spelling on their own.
Okay. So it'll automatically pop up if they need to do it, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Or it will say on there like optional. Okay. And that's where you use your judgment if you want to test that kid on that or not.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Not a problem. Now, let me go back to my screen here. Okay, so there is, remember, one portion that is not teacher directed, and that is going to be the mClass spelling. And we are using that as part of our dyslexia screener. The mClass spelling is also available in Spanish, and the only difference is the language, but it goes exactly the same. All the tests, that's another thing I like. All the tests follow the same format regardless of the language. It's just going to be the words that are going to change. Now, already you should have watched in the PD. If not, if you didn't have time, that's fine. I have a video on the Schoology that goes through all of these teacher parts that we're going to talk about right now. This video is going to show you what it looks like for the student.
This video walks you through an mClass spelling assessment. We'll show you how students log on to the assessment portal and then walk you through the screens they encounter as they complete a spelling assessment. Once your students have their usernames and passwords, they can log into the student portal. Open a browser and navigate to mclass.amplify.com/student. Students enter their username and password, and then click Log In. The welcome screen opens. Students should confirm that their name and grade display at the top. The required measures for the current time of year show in a ribbon at the bottom of the screen. For this video, spelling is the only required measure.
This is the student
Stars fill in as
view.
students complete the measures. Students should put on their headphones and click Start. For mClass spelling, students listen to stimulus words and then spell them correctly using an on-screen keyboard. On the model screen, the owl shows students how to spell the stimulus word by tapping or clicking the on-screen letters and clicking OK. Then students are given a chance to practice. Each correct letter is highlighted, and only the correct letter can be clicked. When students finish clicking
This
all
is
the
for the
letters in the
practice.
practice word, They click OK. Then students are shown how to correct a word when they enter it incorrectly by clicking the red X and retyping the word. The OWL provides a final set of instructions. Once students click OK, the spelling measure begins. Each stimulus word is spoken. If students need to rehear the word while spelling it, they can click the speaker icon at any time. If necessary, they can click the OWL to hear the instructions again. Students click each letter until they have spelled the word. Once they think they have it spelled correctly, they click OK. After they click OK, students cannot return to an earlier word to change their answer. But if they see they've spelled a word incorrectly, they can click the red X. The letters they entered are cleared, and students can re-enter the word correctly. After students spell all the stimulus words and click OK, they see a short animation. They are then returned to the welcome screen. The spelling star is filled in. If students have additional measures to complete, they can click Start to continue. If they are finished with assessment, the screen says you are done. These students can end their assessment session by clicking the arrow at the top of the screen, clicking Log Out, and clicking Yes to confirm. They are returned to the login screen. They can now safely close the browser. And that's how students complete mClass spelling. Thank you for watching.
So easy, right? With the mClass spelling, you may want to go ahead and do this in small groups so you can observe the students while they're taking the assessment. So that way, hopefully you can note if any students had assistance, especially students you might be concerned. That I think is going to be the biggest issue with the spelling test is we do have parents that like to help. So that's why you might want to do these in small group or individual, those kids that you're concerned about. So that way you can note that, you know what, heard parent in the distance or, you know, knew that there was somebody else there, you know, helping the student. Now, this you may want to get done as soon as you get your accounts, okay? One of the things about the spelling test is you do need to make it available for the students and you need to give them, you need to be able to access their login information. I wish this was like all automatic, okay? If we hear different, like it's going to be attached to class link, I'll let you all know, but right now I'm not hearing that, okay? I'll keep you all posted. So in order to make it available to the students, once you're in your mClass account, you're going to go to Online Assistant Management. Then you're going to go to your class list and you're going to click for spelling. To generate the student login credentials for your class, this is an additional step. You need to go back to your mClass home and you're going to go to classes and groups. From there, you're going to go ahead and select your class and then you're going to select student logins. Then you'll go ahead and create all. You can also go ahead and download this as a CSV file, which is an Excel spreadsheet, so you can have them all on one page. Now with the spelling, this is the part that I find kind of intimidating because it's an extra step we need to take, okay? So as soon as you get into your mClass account, you may want to go ahead and get this done, all right? That way you have it already prepared for the kids, and then when you're ready, you can give them their login for the spelling account. All right, now the rest of this PowerPoint, there also is, just back to the spelling, there also is the video from the PD that takes you step by step, like my PowerPoint, on how to generate and how to access the student logins. Okay, so that is there, that video is there. If you have problems finding videos, text me, let me know, okay? The rest of my PowerPoint for today is basically just reminding you to make sure you sync your data, how we sync our data, and then just the home resources for parents. There are letters that we can print out to parents once we are done with testing, and also some of their help resources. Okay, so this you can go through on your own. My notes are in the PowerPoint as well if you wish to go through those. Then next thing is just, okay, logging in and getting in there. This is more resources to help us if we need them from our mClass accounts. This you can go through on your own, and these are more PD resources. I know it's kind of hard getting professional development done this year. So they have podcasts. So if you do any of these little podcasts, listen to them later, jot them on a sheet of paper, submit it for T-test. Okay, this counts as PD too. And that is basically it. Okay, so you have the videos on how to do the remote assessment. You have the information, just let me know where you need help. Now, the new update for today is that the rosters have been uploaded to mClass. So the teachers, you all should be receiving your account information. It should show up. Mine wasn't in junk mail, but that doesn't mean that yours won't be. You never know sometimes with our email. But it will say external, which has been driving me nuts. External, a new Amplify account has been created for you. Okay, this is what the email will look like. So that should be arriving either today or sometime soon, so you can get into those mClass accounts. And then some of your rosters, keep an eye on it, might be changing because you have students going over to Balderrama. Okay, am I correct? All right, so keep an eye on that as well. We'll play that by ear on how we're going to give her access. Hopefully those rosters just go ahead and sync overnight, but sometimes we know it's not always that easy. So, we'll just play that by ear. And let me go ahead and put the sign-in sheet for you all.